The approximate age of emergence of the steadfast supportive structure is from the second to the fourth years of life. When unintegrated, it exemplifies a pattern of holding in against the fear of humiliation and shame. The basic right in question is, do I have the right to act on my feelings? The earlier general state of pleasurable dopamine excitement is now followed by a period of anxious, depressed, shame response, hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical activity, short form they call the HPA axis, starting between 12 and 14 months. This phase heralds the beginnings of the development of societal inhibitory capacities in the child. Great importance is placed on the development of shame. This intense swing from a positive sympathetic to a stress-deflated parasympathetic state is thought to activate further development of the frontal limbic structure. That's the structure in your brain that regulates affect, your emotional expression, and the maturation of the orbital frontal cortex, which regulates object constancy and emotional assessment, meaning that the child can remember, okay, that's mother when she's feeling good, or that's father when he's anxious, or that we start to develop memories now that we can hold in place in our mind. So what has been validated neurologically fits the observations of the emotional and behavioral patterns at this period of life. The fearfulness, depression, sensitivity, and separation anxiety described at this stage of child development fits the descriptions of the emerging adrenocortical function. This affective state is triggered by normal misregulations as well as shaming interactions. Now understand, this is not just in exceptional cases. This is a regular developmental stage that children in all cultures tend to go through at this time of life. The toddler is abruptly plunged from a state of pleasurable, high dopamine sympathetic excitement into a sudden stress-filled parasympathetic vagal activation. The child's excitement is sharply inhibited, the heart rate abruptly slows, the body and limbs lose tonus, the head hangs and the face loses tone and blushes. The legs may even give way. The child feels lost and the mother can seem like an alien being. It's now vital that the mother can regulate the infant out of this state of intense shame, since the toddler's immature nervous system does not yet know how to do it. The child will probably try to make contact with the mother to reinstate the lost regulatory flow and with it, the good inner feelings. If all goes well, the mother will connect and stay in contact with the toddler until they're back on their feet again. Though this kind of interaction, the toddler senses an object constancy which deepens as the child incorporates conflict and painful dystonic feelings, as well as healing in representations of being with the mother or other comforting figures. In other words, the child is more effectively remembering and internalizing hurtful or shaming interactions. Around 18 to 24 months, signal shame is becoming an internal guiding system that is strengthened in the toddlerhood as the child becomes increasingly sensitive to the signs of disapproval. The child responds to a parental frown or disapproving look or tone of voice more readily. So he said, let's look at figure 13. which is just a graphic representation of the encoded shame, not only as on the conscious levels, but also the deeper pre-verbal levels where it manifests in body postures and breathing patterns. This deep sense of shame is often difficult to access through rational means, but can be addressed directly by working with the breath and the body. And I was musing over this actually as I was thinking about presenting this today, and just remembering when we really go deep with a person in breath work, and there's that disquietude that they have. They know intellectually, well, I'm a good person. We have lots of rational affirmations about how lovable they are, but there's something like lurking beneath the surface about, oh, I don't know that I really am okay. See, shame is different than guilt. Guilt is a bad feeling because you did something. You misbehaved, or you hurt somebody. You broke something. But shame is the feeling of not being okay just for the way you are. Newer psychoanalytical theory suggests that the formative dynamic is when one of socializing functions of shaming and shame that lie at the heart of the developmental sense of self. It describes the infant as living in a dreamlike present until the shaming parent and its own emotional response jerks the infant into full wakefulness. In this context of early ego formation, many theoreticians speak of the shame process, with its abrupt plunge into the dissociative vagal activation, as being one of the most intensely kinesthetic feelings that we experience. Here again, this is why breath work can get to and help release this, whereas in our conscious mind, that's something we want to avoid at all costs. Pathological exchanges may also occur in this vital process. Unregulated parental expressions of rage and contempt evoke intense and unrelieved shame and humiliation. Shame-humiliation dynamics have been found to consistently accompany child abuse. If the stresses of the child's life are too overwhelming, paralysis in the vagally dominated state of diminished movement and interest in the environment, and a general activation of the anxiety, deflation, shame state may predominate. When unintegrated, this can eventuate in a persistent underlying sense of unworthiness. Again, this is not logical or rational. It's just a basic sense of something's wrong with me the way I am. More extreme, it can develop into chronic depression and even suicidal tendencies. Some postulate that this formative dynamic is anchored in the right of self-expression that has been suppressed and developing primarily the interaction between the parent and child around severe early toilet training when temper tantrums were suppressed. I postulate a more general origination wherein that parents let the child do for themselves and discover on their own versus what behavior they shape by giving or withdrawing their love sets the balance in the children's need to please themselves versus the need to please others. So in other words, it's not just about toilet training. It's a whole way that parents encourage and accept the feelings or control it through love withdrawal or negative feedback. The developmental challenge is closeness versus freedom of expression. In this stage, the child has a more differentiated emotional system and can see their feelings as a threat to the closeness and harmony that they've developed. The illusion is that the expression of feelings always causes separation. With their emerging feelings unvalidated, their basic belief becomes that their true self is unappreciated. Yet they must muddle on, and life is experienced as a, quotes, noble struggle. A good me, bad me split precludes transparency in relationships. Good me is when you're expressing feelings that are liked by the parents and encouraged. The bad me is when you have feelings that they don't like or are threatened by. They are under continual pressure with this theme to only express the feelings that significant others approve of and suppress the feelings that might garner disapproval, to which they are now highly sensitized. These standards may be different from parent to parent, and later on, other authority figures making the job of trying to please everyone a Herculean task. They're living with an intense internal pressure to do things, quotes, right, with a strong desire for approval predominating, combined with an underlying distrust of further disapproval. The original sense of shame is continually reaffirmed. The somatic holding pattern is tension in the shoulders, anus, buttocks, and thighs. Fear of disapproval in toilet training, that is, having to control their bodily elimination on another's schedule rather than their internal organic impulses. If, quotes, being a big boy or big girl and not needing diapers is of great importance to the parents and is strongly encouraged before the child's nerve fibers to the sphincter muscles are fully myelinated, then the child must accomplish the task of fecal control by squeezing the buttocks diligently, lest they let out the, quotes, bad stuff, fecal matter, at the wrong time and be shamed. This physical tension is paralleled on the emotional level by having to continually be on guard to hold in the bad feelings, however they are defined and transmitted by the family, either overtly with messages like, oh, you shouldn't feel angry or sad or even too excited, and perhaps reinforced with overt threat like, I'll give you something to cry about, or go to your room until you can apologize for speaking with that tone. Or the family code of appropriate feelings can more subtly be reinforced with disapproving looks and love withdrawal in the form of distancing and or emotional coldness. Under this internalized pressure, their body appears compressed and constricted to contain and hold energy, absorbing any incoming energy that solidifies into defensive armoring. They must swallow whatever feelings are dished out by the authority figures who may be allowed to express feelings that children are not allowed to, for example, anger or rage, just as they may be shamed if they do not swallow and act appreciative with whatever food is served, or gifts that are given to them, regardless of how they feel about them. They are taught to smile and say thank you while swallowing anything that might offend others. The body presents with wide or well-built shoulders and slab-like muscles, and the head tends to sit well back in the body with eyes sunk deeply in the head. The main tensions are in the flexor muscles. Energy is internalized and hypoactive, but with intellect and emotions fully integrated. Now, it's not that they're dull-witted or unintelligent. Other correlates are thick neck, pelvis tucked in, and a shortened, thick waist, often with a squashed appearance. The eyes communicate suffering and the confusion. So let's look at that figure. This shows the body structure of a man displaying the steadfast supportive theme. The face has a naive expression. The neck is short and thick. The shoulders have tension. The back is rounded over, like carrying the burdens of the world. The abdomen muscles are contracted. Pelvis is forward, but the buttocks are squeezed. Calf and the thigh front is underdeveloped. It's the back that's overdeveloped of the legs and thighs. It's overdeveloped. The feet have tight arches, and the body is squashed and muscle-bound. So an emotional presentation of the fear-based polarity of this type is one of anxiety to the point of immobilization, with feelings of guilt and shame occupied with an inability to move on from situations when needed. Closeness in relationships is accomplished through submission, and there's a likelihood of rage against rules. This gentleman in the picture, when I was working with him and offered to do an exercise that he could express his anger more directly, I said, I'm going to hold a pillow and have you hit the pillow and feel good about that expression of direct assertion. And he began to smile kind of sheepishly, and he says, oh, wonderful. The last therapist I did this with, I put a hole in his wall. I thought, okay, maybe we won't put my property in danger here. So anger has been turned inward and often directed at self as guilt, or comes out indirectly in passive aggressiveness. Yeah. So accidentally hurting someone, like stepping on their foot or damaging someone's property, spilling a drink on their rug, forgetting an appointment or being late, acting the martyr role of suffering for others who don't appreciate them. Now, they correctly experience the internal suffering and efforts to get approval as not being appreciated by others. So again, I'm not criticizing and saying they're doing that consciously. This has been the only way that they've been able to let out steam. I'll explain to you my struggles with that in a few minutes. The anal characteristics include self-deprecation and abasement, and are thought to be in connection to humiliation and shame from a fear of the bottom falling out, losing control, and inappropriate expression. So let's look at the Steadfast Supportive drawings. This shows the flow from unintegrated to integrated. In the integrated state, these individuals display high levels of endurance and loyalty, and have an ability to express freely while staying in connection with their own feelings. They can be helpful without crossing their own boundaries of self-care, so they don't become a martyr. They've learned how to stick with things a long time where other people may give up. They're great to have on your team, especially when they're integrated, because then they're not going to overdo and then feel like you're picking on them or feel like a martyr. Thus, they can be genuinely playful and tenderhearted. They project a strong presence and excel in supportive roles. They can also excel in helping professions and have learned to give and express their needs in the proportions that keep themselves balanced and internally rewarded. Their anger is channeled into appropriate and direct methods of problem solving that bring out creative resources rather than playing into a victim, persecutor, rescuer dynamic. Their warmth and receptivity put others at ease, and their competency instills trust. They're not afraid to do what needs to be done to complete tasks, but do not become, quotes, victims in the process. They have integrated a full range of emotional expression and can help others feel safe in expressing and releasing their uncomfortable feelings. As we said, shame, guilt, anger, sadness. The integrated, steadfast, supportive is loyal and a lasting friend and a true helper in the best sense of the word. So early family dynamics for the steadfast supporter may include a message from mother: if I can control you, I will be supported as a good mother and woman. Father's message is, you support your mother, I don't want to. So let's try on this posture here. Right now, as we're watching the video, feel squashed externally with the weight of the world to have to please everyone on your shoulders. Think to yourself, no one appreciates me. But paste on a smile and say under your breath, shit on you. Shit on you. Okay. So that's the contradiction that goes on when all your emotional body has been invalidated and not under your control at all. Let's get into a little more direct expression here, appropriate to the steadfast supportive theme. So we're going to do a very simple exercise to get some energy moving here, because I know I've given a lot of information here. So let's free up this energy. I'm going to show you a little video clip in a second. What you're going to be doing is you're going to hold your fists up in front with your elbows out and then strike back with one elbow and then the other, saying with determination to whatever is the right target for you, get off my back, get off my back. And you're going to breathe and feel the strength of conviction, okay? So, in other words, whatever to you has felt oppressive, whatever has felt like has really squashed your sense of freedom of expression or independence, you'll get to say it to that very directly. So let's go ahead and show the clip. One of the themes for the steadfast supportive is having the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's like carrying everyone and everything on your back. This exercise is designed to help free that experience of being weighted down and not being able to say anything about it. It's very simple. We put our fists together in front of us, our elbows are up, and we're going to strike back with one elbow at a time and say the words, get off my back. Now, it's important, again, to have a nice, strong stance on the ground. Your knees are soft. And when you're striking back, think of what it is that you would really like to have off your case, off your back, as it were. And as with all exercises, do not strain yourself or hurt yourself in any way, which is counterproductive, because that's the fear of the steadfast supportive, is that straight assertive energy will somehow come back on them and hurt them. Okay, so let's play with this. Your fists are up in front of you. You're thinking of what it is that you'd really like to have off your back, and one elbow at a time, and then we'll do both at a time. Get off my back! 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 Now breathe. And experience a sense of freedom, of being able to truly let go of all those burdens that you've been carrying unnecessarily in your life. So what would it take for you to be able to do this exercise pleasurably? Breathe and see if you can trace the origins of where feelings and or judgments around this come from in your history. Now, again, with bioenergetic exercises, some people will with certain exercises will have a great time and it'll feel wonderful. And for others, not so much. In fact, they may get what's called bad feelings. They may feel shame or guilt around it, or horror that anyone could talk like that, or whatever it is. So you're not supposed to feel a certain feeling, but we're looking at where the judgments come around that kind of expression. And again, this is not what you do when you go to the grocery store and don't like that they're out of whatever product you want to buy that day. No, this is not adult expression. We're going back to unravel some of the deep holding patterns. We could go to the grocery store and feel irritated that, for example, the product we wanted wasn't there, but then go home and feel guilty about feeling irritated. So that's how these early childhood feelings can perpetuate. And no, it doesn't ruin my entire life, but it certainly dampens my sense of freedom and pleasure.